Hi everyone, Melanie here. Hope you're all doing well today. Today I'd like to talk about the relationship between trauma and self-sabotage, that these two are most definitely linked, and how sadly a life filled with trauma, early childhood in which you experience trauma, often means as an adult you develop a greater propensity towards self-sabotage. Now what does this mean? Well, it means you have a greater propensity towards undoing all your hard work. Anytime that you want to break an old habit and start something new, whether that's an activity, lifestyle change, how you talk to yourself, whatever it is, there's this big pull back towards going back to how you used to be. There's a pendulating effect that exists in all of us when we seek change, growth. There's this pendulating pull back towards sticking in old habits again. Now, this is partly the nature of the ego. Ego hates change, prefers familiarity, the known over the unknown. Even though you can rationalize that this change is going to be great for you, still there is a part of you that is reluctant because it puts you out of your comfort zone. You don't know what it's going to be like. You are no longer in the comforts of your old habits, even though they are or could be self-destructive. Nonetheless, there's a part of you that clings onto the comfort of old ways, even if they are damaging you. People who are deeply traumatized very much experience this pendulating effect, even though it is good for them to perhaps seek help and to work on their impulsivity, to learn to catch themselves when they start putting themselves down all the time. Whatever it is, very traumatized people will find a way to mess it up. And sadly, this is quite simply as a reflection of all the abuse that they had to endure when they were younger. Think about it. Imagine you had a parent who was always telling you off, punishing you, abusing you. The thing about parents is that when we grow up, we end up internalizing how they talk. As much as we don't want to admit it, we do. How an abusive parent treated us, spoke to us, condemned us, is how we as adults end up talking to ourselves. So if you can relate to having a childhood in which you were blamed, you felt guilty, you felt ashamed, and a parent would punish you, like to make you feel small, it means as an adult, you do this to yourself. And you will find situations in which you can repeat doing this to yourself, in which you can be intimate with someone who treats you and punishes you like an abusive parent used to. Internalizing the voices of abusive parents is one surefire way to develop a very toxic superego. Superego, as Freud would say, runs on the moral principle. So this is something that develops adolescence going into teens and adulthood. And this is the do's and don'ts of how we should be. And this comes from parents, it comes from friendship groups, it comes from TV, culture, teachers. But a significant part of our superego is based on how our parents spoke to us. It is based on how they viewed the world. Someone who's experienced a lot of trauma will self-sabotage, and sadly, they are doing it to themselves. Perhaps they believe that they're not worthy, that they're a bad kid. They've internalized the cruel, punitive voices from their parents. And so when they actually are faced with a partner who is willing to love, a partner who actually loves them, and they never had this unconditional love from a decent, kind person, so they don't know how to handle it. And a voice is telling them, you don't deserve this, you're a bad person. And they end up messing up the relationship because they're repeating what's known. They believe they're a bad person and they don't deserve it. So unconsciously, he or she may find ways to ruin things so that it can be confirmed back to him or her, you are a bad person. Now, I'm talking about all of this because if you have a partner who's personality disordered, perhaps it's just really traumatized, you don't know what's up, but you've noticed that your partner who has been through a lot tends to always mess up any efforts towards change. A partner who says they will go into therapy and then just backs off last minute and gets cold feet. A partner who says they will quit their addiction and it doesn't last for long at all. It's so easy for people who are deeply traumatized to keep on sabotaging their efforts towards health and improvement and feeling better again. It is so heartbreaking to see someone that you care about, whether it's a family member, a friend, your partner, who is so deeply wounded that they just keep inflicting wounds upon themselves. Self-flagellation, they keep punishing themselves because they are still reliving the past. For someone who is deeply traumatized, it's very easy to experience emotional flashbacks on a daily basis. And what this does is takes us straight to the core wound, but experienced through feeling. And it's quite intense to be suddenly struck with intense feelings of whatever the pain is. But it goes back to the feelings that you felt when you were younger. It always takes us to a younger place. If you can relate, how do you work with this? The best remedy, in my opinion, is learning how to become the observer of your mind. Learning how to detach from certain thoughts, certain feelings. Be honest with yourself. What kind of patterns do you fall in on a daily basis? With regards to thinking, how you talk to yourself, activities, habits. Whatever you repeat on a daily basis is what governs your life. Remember that energy follows thought. Whatever you pay attention to, it's like focusing on a laser beam. More energy is directed towards whatever you focus your attention on. So it's up to you and you alone to choose what you are focusing on. If you've been engaging in a lot of anxiety, worrying thoughts, and anger, perhaps, sadness, I don't want to call them negative emotions because all emotions serve as a purpose to guide us. The anxiety that you feel, the anger that you feel, it's meant to tell you something. It's meant to inform you something. It's meant to guide you, but not rule you. And yet it does. For so many of us, we let the anxiety rule us. We let the anger fester within us. If you notice certain emotions, especially the lower negative emotions, it becomes addictive to dwell in them. It's easy to get stuck into a vicious cycle of thoughts in which perhaps we're feeling anxious, and then that brings up certain thoughts of an anxious nature, which then just further builds up the anxiety, and that further builds up the thought, and then eventually this creates behaviors which are often anxiety related. Same with anger, same with sadness. It's easy to get sucked into this whirlpool, this vicious cycle. And the more that you stay stuck in this, the more it gets a hold of you. And if you keep engaging in these kind of emotions for too long, it will have a negative effect. It will hurt you. Is it worth it? As I said earlier in the video, it's the nature of the ego to want to keep repeating familiar habits. And such a habit, such a cycle, is to do with anxiety. It's to do with anger. Any emotions that we find we get stuck in and takes over us, and we keep living in this because we keep living the past. So to resolve this, to break these habits, to make a change, partly addressing the past, because whatever we resist persists. The unconscious does drive us. So if there's stuff that you're running away from, you're not addressing, be aware that eventually you will need to address it. Don't let it get to the point where you are ill and broken and you have no choice but to face these feelings. To know how to use these uncomfortable feelings. What are they telling me? What do I need to do? Do I need to prepare? Do I need to be more organized? Or is this all fear-based? Is this actually unnecessary anxiety that's coming from the past because we are still living in the past? The only way that you can discern is only you can figure this out, but it needs to come from a place which is not gripped in fear, a place which isn't coming from the past, but in the present, in the here and now. A clear place that can make an accurate decision, like a bird's eye view. And meditation does this. Mindfulness does this, to teach you to come to the center of pure will and consciousness, the observer place, as I call it. And from this calm and centered place, you can make much better decisions. It means that this is giving you control of the reins of your own mind. No longer will you be pulled by every whim and impulse. You can actually start to choose which thoughts you want to engage in and which thoughts to drop, which emotions to cultivate more of and which ones just to drop. So to end the video, to sum this all up, it's your responsibility as a sovereign person, every single person here, to take responsibility for their thoughts, for their feelings, and for their behaviors in any given day. You're an adult, you have choice. The longer you keep blaming others, you end up giving your power away. When you start working on yourself, and let's face it, you only have yourself to rely on. You can't rely on other people to always be there, to be making things easy for you to do the work. It has to come from you. And it's so simple. The answer, the practice is free. It's right under your nose. It's quite simply meditation. Learning to be in better control of yourself. So those are my thoughts for the day. I'll leave it here. What do you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll talk to you next time. All right, bye for now.